you know my world, but like like what I'm really good at is one-to-many selling, right? And the reason why is because I can't, one-to-many selling, as you know, we can't just have a conversation. I figure out your disc profile and then I can sell you based on exactly who you are. And I do think the tech is close. That's why we built the personality profiling company, is just to get a huge database of profiles so I can feed it into funnels. So when you opt into a funnel, I can be like, oh, he's an INFJ, rewrite the headline for someone that's, you know, like, so that's where I'm going with my whole, anyway, my world. But prior to that, we can't do that, right? Like if I'm in a room speaking to 1,000 people or 10,000 people to sell them something, or I have a webinar with 5,000 people that I don't know who they are or whatever, like I've got to figure out the profile of the audience as a whole, right? And then figuring out like what are the false beliefs that they have as a whole, and like, and all these kind of things. And from that, we reverse engineer, build a presentation that's going to try to attack as many things as we can, rewrite false beliefs in a 90-minute presentation that hopefully hits as many people as humanly possible, right? Like that's the world that I've been in for the last 20 years with one-to-many selling. And again, this last week we watched probably a dozen or more of your interviews. It's been fun. And so there are parts that, some things you said in other ways that were interesting because like you guys are doing that, but you're doing it on like a target, like a person, like you're trying to figure out like exactly who that person is. I'd love to know more about just when you guys are doing that, focusing on a target, like some of the things, the things you're trying to understand about them believing, because it all ties back to beliefs, right? Like the things we have to get them to, we have to understand about them so we can figure out the beliefs we need them to have to be able to persuade or to move.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because this is one place where I deviate from your expert secrets. When I first read Expert Secrets and I saw your kind of your webinar profile and all of your great sketches about the Epiphany Bridge and, you know, the opportunity shift, there were elements of that I was like, this is gold. Opportunity shift, gold. The Epiphany Bridge, I was like, that's not been my experience, because in CIA, when we're in the field, we don't want to change someone's core beliefs. The more you try to change someone's core beliefs, the more you push them away. The more you force them into a situation where they have to choose you or themselves. And people will always choose themselves. It's inherent in their
survival.
Psyche. It's a survival instinct. I have to put myself before anybody else. So rather than build a bridge that kind of makes them ask the questions that are uncomfortable for themselves, we try to build a bridge of commonality. And then after they join you on the commonality, after they make the commitment to come with you because you're like them, then they're more receptive to changes that they need to make for themselves, right? So in the field, you do that by essentially you assess a person, their personality, yes, but their values, their beliefs, their vocabulary, their body language, their verbal language, their intonation,
Are you doing this in real time or something you were prepping before you?
And both, because you get a profile for a person, you get a dossier in advance. So you kind of get some rough edges of what the person might look like. And then when you're actually with them in person, because dossiers can be wrong. When you're with them in person, you get a better sense of who they are. And as you learn who they are, what you actually want to do is you want to echo back their beliefs, echo back their values. You don't have to say something that isn't true, but you want them to feel safe being who they already think they are in that moment. So when we host our webinars, when we talk to people online, whenever I'm selling, I am very much trying to create an echo of who they already believe they are, so that they feel safe with me.
Rapport, yeah.
And then once you have that kind of anchor into them, now there's an avenue, there's a bridge for you to present them uncomfortable truths, because they see so many truths that are already there. And if you really want to lead, because CIA knows that the best secrets don't exist with treasonous people. The best secrets live with patriots. They live with loyalists. They live with people who are faithfully dedicated to the cause. Well, how do you get a patriot to become a traitor consistently and in a predictable period of time? You know how long it takes to turn a patriot into a traitor?
No.
9 months.
Really?
9 months. 9 months of meeting with them once to twice a week over the course of 9 months, and you'll get them to turn coat against their country. That's a person who's built a whole career, a person who's built their whole life trusting their country and their country trusting them, to the point where now they carry the president's secrets. They carry nuclear codes. They carry scientific secrets, and they're willing to trade those for something else because they trust you with the secrets that they've been trusted with, right? So we try to use that same model, not as a replacement to your Epiphany Bridge, but as like a precursor to it.
That's really interesting. I know there's a guy in Australia, he's a great speaker, and when he speaks an event, he said the first thing he tries to do is he brings in universals that everyone believes true. So he's like, hey, let's say it's Friday. It's like, hey, happy beer on this Friday afternoon. And everyone's like, yeah, it's Friday. Like, yeah, and it's crazy how sunny it is outside. And he like all these universal things that are true for everybody. Is like the more of the universals we get, then we're all like have perfect rapport before we transition to other things. He's trying to get everybody to feel that same way. So it sounds very similar. Like how you're doing on your presentation.
It's true. And one of the things that I also try to do is I try to give people vocabulary, my vocabulary, right? I don't want your vocabulary. I want you to understand my vocabulary, and universal truths are a piece of that. But what we do is we draw this parallel, just like I'm doing with you, right? When you were talking about your wife is in between introvert and extrovert, I was like, we call that cusp. Well, now you and I are on the same page with this term cusp, but subconsciously it's my term. So if you use my term, subconsciously, you are already aligning yourself with me. Well, now when you're talking about one-to-many selling, whether it's through an automated funnel because it's written on a piece of paper, or whether it's a video or whether it's a podcast, people are subconsciously aligning themselves with you, which in the human brain, because human beings are a tribal creature, we're a pack animal, we're always subjecting ourselves or pushing ourselves to be somewhere on the hierarchical ladder. So every time you accept somebody else's will, every time you accept somebody else's instruction, every time you accept somebody else's vocabulary, you are putting yourself lower on the subordinate line, which means where they take you next, you're more likely to go. So with one-to-many selling, we do a lot of, here, I'm going to give you some vocabulary. I want to make sure that you're understanding what I'm saying so that I don't lose you. And I want to make sure that you have a whole new vocabulary for success in the future. So let's talk about these words. And you do it in these books all the time, which is why you have such faithful followers. But it's also when you talk about those people who read but don't apply, the people who read but don't apply haven't adopted your vocabulary. If they can't even adopt your vocabulary, there's no way they're going to adopt your steps, your actions. But the people who adopt your vocabulary are 100% in.
It's interesting. In Extrovert Seekers talk about status a lot, like status decrease and increase. And what we're talking about is that it's like you have that, your introducing vocabulary gives them a status decrease, which gives you an increase. But then it's also like, it's fascinating because then as you're moving, they want to move toward, if you do it correctly, then they want to move towards you and with you versus like just separating, like, I don't like this anymore. And some do separate, and that's fine too.
Yeah. And it's hard. You want to make it as hard. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to subordinate themselves and as hard as possible for them to leave. Because once you've kind of fallen in, that's why grade school works. The whole reason middle school and high school work at all is because grade school works. Because we all subordinate ourselves to school starts here, school ends there. That's what a bell means. Teacher tells us when lunch starts. Teacher tells us when lunch ends. Teacher tells us the assignment. Even mom and dad subject themselves to the teacher. What's the first thing they ask you when you get home from school? Do you have any homework? Well, who gave us homework? The teacher. So mom and dad are subjecting themselves to the teacher. So all of a sudden we learn, don't question the teacher. And the teacher just gets replaced by the boss and the supervisor and the college professor. And we never realize that we're just reliving grade school all the time. Well, we don't need to change the way that we work, or we don't need to change the way that other people work. We just need to be the new teacher because they're already subordinate to a teacher.
Yeah.